All right. Hello and welcome everybody to today's live with It's All About Choices. Today we are up close and personal with our very special guest, Lewis Thurston. And he was once a private client of mine, and he is a regular listener every Tuesday on Facebook Lives. And it has been almost 2 years since we have worked one-on-one together, and I'm super excited to have Lewis join me today and as we reconnect and catch up. And so, thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to share your personal testimony, your journey with all of us. So, we definitely appreciate that. And I know many of our listeners can relate to today's topic. And so today we're talking about how Lewis finally lost 26 pounds. He lowered his blood pressure, cholesterol, and fasting sugar levels, avoiding additional medications, and starting on insulin. Okay. And so that is huge. And so Lewis is not alone in this situation. Simply replace his name with yours. And many of us can relate to making those changes or trying to make those changes, and we make all these different revisions to how we eat and what we do, but yet the scale is still going up, our blood pressure is still rising, our fasting blood sugar levels are still rising, and then on top of that, maybe our cholesterol and our A1C levels are still elevated every time we go and get our labs drawn. So it's very frustrating when you can make all those changes and you don't see the results that you're seeking. And so for those who are tuning in live and for those who are listening to the replay, I encourage you to post any comments, any questions that you have. I will monitor the thread, and so I will respond. And if there's something that I cannot answer, I will ask Lewis and I will get the answer for you, okay? And so Lewis has known me actually since I was a kid, and we're not related by blood, but we are family. And he is one of the few people that has witnessed me going back to school, leaving the computer programming field, and entering into my current purpose, which is being a registered dietitian. And so I was honored that he asked me to join his healthcare team. And today we're going to talk more about who Lewis is, his fears of carbs, his struggles with managing his diabetes and his cholesterol and getting that weight off. And also something that's very important that we don't hear many people talk about is his challenges with change, and specifically changing habits. It's very difficult to change habits and behaviors that we've done for years, and a lot of things that we don't even realize we do. And so he's going to share a bit more about that period as well. And so I have no doubt that you will find his story impactful, and you will even see yourself in him as well. And so now we're going to hear from the man of the hour. And so if you would please share with us, Lewis, your line of work and what you do for a living.
Well, first, I'd like to say thank you, Sandra. And as you said, we may not be family by blood, but we are family. We've known each other over 50 years. So,
Mhm.
we are family. But what I would just like to share, with our viewers, I am an IT professional. I've been an IT professional since, wow, I hate to give a date, but over 35 years. And so I'm near retirement, and I'm just excited, and I want to go into retirement, in a healthy state. And so one of the things that I want to do is make sure that, I was healthy, and I was watching you do your interviews and do your show, online one day, and I decided, you know what? I'm going to the doctor already, so I may as well, give Sandra a try. And that's what I decided to do. I'm very active in fraternal life, also, family life, enjoy working with the kids. And so I just have a lot of things going on. And but one thing that I wasn't mindful of, and that was, my overall health. And so in working with you, I got opportunity to focus on my health. So that's
Awesome.
that's that's where I'm at right now.
Awesome, awesome. And share with us when you were diagnosed, if you can remember the order and maybe around the time frame of when you were diagnosed with the diabetes, the high blood pressure, and the cholesterol.
Okay, well, I'll never forget. It was the day after Thanksgiving. I want to say it was 2017. And we had this big Thanksgiving dinner. I was, enjoying myself. I mean, I just ate everything, and I was just really, really excited about, Thanksgiving, day after Thanksgiving. But I woke up, and I'll never forget, it was a Friday morning. and I had read a book, or I was reading a book the night before. So night of Thanksgiving, before I went to bed, I was reading this book. So that Friday morning, I woke up, I could not see the letters on the page. And so, I was like, oh wow, uh, I've gotten to the point now where I need to have glasses. And so I was like, but I was afraid because I was like, this is really strange because I can't even read the letters on the page. And so I went to Walgreens, bought some readers, put the readers on, and the letters, I could see the letters on the page. And I was like, okay, I just don't reach that point. But at the same time, at night while I was driving, and this was over the weekend, I couldn't read the signs, in the road, and I was really, worried. And so that Monday morning, I called my doctor and went to, and they told me that, hey, you need to go get this lab work. And so apparently they sort of did a rush on the labs. And when they got the results back, and this was on a Tuesday, my doctor wanted me to come in because apparently there was something in the labs that, he was very concerned about. And I was like, okay. So I went to the doctor, and at the same time, the doctor, he took my blood sugar again. And at that point, based on the labs, it was like 13.9. And so he was to the point of ready to send me to the emergency room because he thought my blood sugar, was truly elevated. And so he said, well, you know what? Time has really caught up with you. You are now, diabetic. And I was like, well, how did that happen? Hey, I've been coming to you for years, and, you always tell me, hey, I need to, watch it. It's a little high, but, we never did anything about it. But this particular time, it had reached that point. And I was like, oh, wow, I was afraid, didn't really know what to expect, and I didn't know what the next step was. And he was like, well, we're going to give you this medication, and you're going to take it. I can remember growing up in a family where our relatives were diabetic and, taking insulin, had a uncle, who had, his leg amputated. And so all of this was in my mind. And I just was like, did not want to go down that road. And so I asked the doctor, okay, what do I need to do? And so he gave me the, hey, you need to take this. We'll set you up with a person that will teach you about, diabetes, your diet, so forth and so on. And, I was like, okay, that's okay. So they was monitoring me really close. And I was like, okay. And that was pretty much my journey or my beginning of dealing with diabetes. And so, but I'm happy to say, it was like a year later, the numbers were coming down, because I felt like, okay, I need to stop eating carbs, stop eating sweets, start looking at things online, reading things about, how to deal with diabetes, what things elevate blood sugar, so forth and so on. And I was like, oh wow, so I dealt with that, I guess for 2 years. And I think it was in 2019, I was listening to you, and I think that's when you and I, got together because I decided, you know what, Sandra's doing this, Sandra is family. So I'm just gonna open up because I really wasn't really trying to share. I felt like it was personal. It was my, it was my journey. Didn't want to involve you, but you was talking about dealing with weight loss and, different health changes. And I decided, hey, let me reach out to Sandra and open up and share with her. And that's when I start having a real and personal conversations with you. And it's been a journey, 2 years or almost 3 years later. And here I am. I can truly say that I may not be consistent with following your program, but going from 2017, a 13.9, and last year, I think it was in September or October, it was at, A1C at a 5.5.
Yes.
And I remember you used to tell me about, getting exercise, and I'm like, well, I'm already busy. I'm already out and about. I'm doing things. I'm active. No, no, you need to walk, you need to run, you need to at least get 30 minutes in. And
Mhm.
we kind of went back and forth on that. But eventually, it got to the point where you was relentless. You would not give up. It's like, hey, I let you in, and you took control to make sure that,
Yeah.
so that's where we are right now.
Yeah.
So that's
And
sort
let
of
me
like my
touch base on
journey.
that. You touched on a lot of things that is important, and as far as keeping things to ourselves. And I think that is just very common with people is we're afraid. We feel like we're the only ones that are doing this, and we feel like we got to figure this out on our own. And I went through the same journey with my blood pressure. When I got
Mhm.
diagnosed in my early 30s, I was like, okay, let me try to figure this out. And I did the same thing. So we all have been down that path, and so it's almost like it's a huge first step to really reach out, and that's
Mhm.
usually the most difficult step, is to reach out, because you don't know where that's going to go. And so I'm glad that you finally did that, because you had a lot of different challenges that were going on. So you had so when he was speaking about A1C, for those that don't know, that is a 3-month average of your blood sugar levels. And so for 13.9, that is very high. That's why the doctors were very concerned, wanted to take to the doctor, take them to the ER, et cetera. And for it to go from 13.9 to 5.5 is amazing. Okay. That is normal ranges, okay, for somebody who's never been diagnosed. So that is huge. So he put the work in, and he put and as you see, it's not about perfection. He said he's not consistent. And it's not about being perfect, doing it all the time 100%. I don't do it 100%. So but it's 80/20. That's where the 80/20 rule comes in. Most of the time you're doing the things that you need to do and giving the body what it needs, and you did that. Now, how long after the diabetes diagnosis did the blood pressure and the cholesterol, how long did those come about?
Well, I think once I started doing, I guess what you suggested, the exercise and walking, those things really help with my overall blood pressure,
Mhm.
and cholesterol. I really haven't monitored my cholesterol. I just basically, every 3, 4 months
Mhm.
when I go to the doctor, they do the labs, and
Right.
they're not, they circle, hey, good cholesterol, bad cholesterol, but they were really concerned about, my A1C,
Right.
my
Most.
blood sugar level. And
Mhm.
so, but as far as cholesterol,
Mhm.
one thing the doctor wanted to make sure was that, hey, because of diabetes, you have a risk of, heart attacks, and strokes.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
cholesterol plays a role in that. And
Mhm.
so they put me on a statin just as a
Mhm.
precautionary measure. And so
Gotcha.
as a result, I think based on the eating methods or the change in eating that you've shared with me and kind of helped guide me through, it has really helped my cholesterol level. But
Mhm.
I really was
Absolutely.
monitoring my A1C and blood
Absolutely.
sugar, and so I think
Absolutely.
as a byproduct or a
Exactly.
side benefit,
Mhm.
my cholesterol is being lowered, my
Absolutely.
weight is being lowered, and so all of that plays a vital part,
Absolutely.
in keeping
Absolutely.
everything together.
Yeah.
Yes,
Total body, exactly. Because you don't, like with exercise, we sometimes spot train. We don't
yes,
want to
yes,
spot with the nutrition side. We don't want to just focus on weight loss, or just in your case, just focus on A1C. We want to make sure that we're addressing the total body, and that's
right.
exactly what we had focused on. And share with me then, what were some of the challenges and struggles you had on your own prior to me, that you were trying to do to get your A1C under control?
Well, I think the initially some of the challenges that I came into was I enjoy food. I love to eat. My friends, they have a running joke. Hey, he will get put out of a restaurant if they have a all you can eat buffet. Okay, so I enjoy eating, and I just felt that there was no food that I could not eat or should not eat if I desired to have it. Okay. And so that was probably the biggest struggle, that I encountered even as a diabetic. I figured, well, if I take my medication, I can still eat what I want to eat. Well, the weight was going up. I think at one point in time, my waist was like at a 42.
Mhm.
Okay, and now my waist is at a 36.
All right.
But But here again, all of this is because of what you have shared with me and how you've educated me in this process about food. I still enjoy food.
Exactly.
I still will go to a buffet, but at the same time, I find myself I can't put the food away like I used to.
That's right.
Even though the desire is there, I cannot put the food away.
Right.
I think with education there comes power, and that's what you provided for me. That was education about food. You never told me that, hey, I couldn't eat this. You always tried to share with me how I need to look at the food, how I need to look at the food labels, how I need to think about the overall balance of the food, to eat from the five food groups. And so beginning, those things were a challenge. I really wasn't into, wanting to hear what you had to say about, hey, need to eat the balance, balance meal. You need to eat from the five food groups. It's like, no, I want to eat my cake. I want to drink my juices. I don't want to drink 4 ounces of juice. I want 8 ounces. I want to drink as much as I want to. But after, I think we probably was into probably our fifth or sixth week,
Mhm.
and you really put your foot down. You say, hey, you know, you're not gonna go back. And you was probably more determined to push me forward than I was to go forward. So I think one of the biggest challenges, another challenge was, just being willing to listen to you, being willing to trust you, and to say, hey, you know what you're doing. Because I was thinking, oh well, I can tell Sandra that this is a better way of doing it. So it's like you always want to do it your way, but it's like, no, you're the professional, Sandra. You're the professional, and I had to come to grips with that. And so again, that was another challenge, wanting to let go and let you coach me through this process.
Mhm.
And even, here we are 3 years later, I still consider you to be my coach. When I go to my doctor and my doctor say, hey, what are you doing? Things are looking good. You're normal. I'm just very proud of you. And I
Mhm.
say, well, I have a registered dietitian, and I say it with pride. And they say, well, who is she? Well, you can find her online. Her name is Sandra Goltry. She's a registered dietitian. And my doctor say, I'm going to look her up too. And so now when I go in, the doctor say, I know what you're doing, and Sandra's
Mhm.
doing a great job with you.
Mhm.
So even though we're not on a program, but you're my lifetime coach as far
Okay,
as
yeah.
when dealing
Yeah.
with my overall health.
Mm.
So I think those are a few challenges that I've shared with you at this particular time. I'm sure you could probably name some challenges that I had, because you had to put your foot down a few times.
Well, the thing is you're not alone. That's what I want, and that's what you're saying is what other people experience, and I think because because we're family, and I'm like, okay, um, it's almost like you had to. She's not that little kid anymore. She can help me. I knew you were still
That's it. That's true. That's true.
and I wasn't gonna give up. I wasn't gonna give up because I you were there, you stepped up, you went out your comfort zone, and so we just had to stay with it, and we got through it, and we got through it,
Yes.
and I'm super proud of you, and I wanted you to share what did the doctors say, when they started seeing things change because they wanted to increase your medication. They wanted
Mhm.
to increase your insulin, and why did they want to do that?
Yeah. Well, and I can truly say I never had to get on insulin. The
Good.
doctors, they've always talked about, hey, if your numbers don't come down, we're gonna have to increase your medication, and ultimately, we'll get to the point of you being on insulin. And every time they began that conversation, I would be like, hey, no, we're not even gonna begin to talk about that.
Mhm.
I think I have something that's gonna lower my numbers, and I think within, like I say, 6 or 8 weeks, I had a doctor visits, and they was looking at my numbers, and they was talking about other types of medications. And I'm like, wait a minute, let me think about Sandra here and what she's saying. These
Mhm.
doctors are talking about medication. Sandra's talking about really like a lifestyle change. Get some exercise, watch what you eat. So I started saying, well, you know what, You got medication on one hand, you got knowledge of food and how to eat and exercise and your overall health on the other hand. Which one do you want to listen to?
Mhm,
Well, I did not, I remember my relatives, doing insulin, and I did
mhm,
not want to go down that road.
mhm,
And so each time the doctors talked about increasing my medication, I was like, I'm going in the other direction.
mhm,
We're looking at decreasing
mhm.
medication. And so since 2017, I have not had any medication increase.
Awesome.
Okay. And my numbers are going down. I just really realized that and believe that if I step back and take a serious look at it, I could probably get off of the medication,
Mhm,
that I'm on. But
mhm,
at the same time, there's a saying that my doctor used to always share with me. He's like, you have to work at keeping your numbers down every day because diabetes do not take a day off. So you
mhm.
cannot take a day off. So you have to
Yeah,
work just as hard every
yeah,
day to
yeah.
keep your numbers down
Mhm,
because diabetes, is working,
yeah,
to
yeah,
raise your numbers.
yeah.
So
Yeah, and in your defense, a lot of that the challenges came from fear. It came from fear of carbs. And a lot of times when people get diagnosed for the very first time, the first thing the doctor says, you got to cut out bread, you got to cut out fruit, you got to cut out this, you got to cut out that. You can't, and so to the point where a person doesn't know what to eat and they're scared when they have diabetes. And so one of the biggest challenge, and it's very common because even those who are trying to lose weight, that's the first thing they do, they cut out carbs, not realizing that that is going to cause side effects later. And in Lewis's case specifically, it was raising his sugar levels. And so here I am saying the opposite. You need to eat some carbs so you can get
yeah,
it down. And so
I-
we had to kind of work through the barriers of what he read and what he was told and the misinformation and then me saying something totally different. And so it was a struggle in that regard, but it's so common. And it's, as a dietitian, it's challenging for me because I know what you've been told, and I know that that where that fear comes from. And so once he got to that point of, okay, we got to eat some carbs at breakfast, we got to eat some carbs at lunch. We got, once we got to that point and he started seeing the levels finally going down, then I think that was the biggest breakthrough. But it was just almost like he had mentioned, he had to kind of let go and trust the process. And I thank you for that because I know that it was difficult for me to come and just say the total opposite of what you've heard and been told. And so yeah, that is definitely something to applaud. And just a reminder for those who are listening live or listening to the replay, feel free to make comments. Feel free to chime in and ask any questions definitely throughout this, and I will follow up on the thread and respond. And so share with me then. A lot of people. Um, Oh, I don't worry. A lot of people. Oh, well, let's talk about the naps. Let's talk about the sleepiness. You used to feel sleepy after lunch a lot.
oh
So
yeah.
share share about your energy levels and how that has changed.
Something I really haven't thought about it. It's been
You done forgot about it.
I totally forgot about it. But I can, now that you brought it back to my remembrance, yes, I can remember, I used to eat lunch and the next thing I wanted to do was take a nap. Okay. I don't know why. I didn't know what was going on. I was like, my sugar level is too high, it's making me sleepy or whatever. I would just come up with anything. I would find myself at my desk, napping. I had to get a nap in or get up and walk around or and I sometimes I felt like, oh, I need to get some candy, I need to get something to
Mhm,
wake me up,
mhm,
and it was like I don't know, I really didn't know what was going on. But like I say, once you start balancing your meals, eating from the appropriate food groups and all, I don't find myself wanting to take a nap,
mhm,
because it's like, you know, 10 minutes before getting on this, doing this interview with you, I had lunch, and
mhm.
I ate well, but I am not sleepy, my energy levels are up, I'm feeling good. And
Awesome.
so, I guess it's been very rewarding
Mhm,
knowing how to eat, what to eat, when to eat,
Good.
those different things. And I can always remember, you teaching me or sharing with me, hey, you can't go, 4 or 5 hours without, eating. You gotta eat a snack, and now I keep my little mini bars. I make sure I get a little snack in there. So
Hmm.
I try not to find try not to allow myself, to get hungry. I think you call it hangry,
Hangry, yes, that's
yeah, yeah. That was a phrase you used to use because, during that point, here again, that was my little rebellious stages, saying, oh, well, if I eat breakfast, I can hold out the lunch. Well, not really.
hmm
If you eating proper and, you eating the right thing, you're going to need something to kind of tide you over to that
yeah,
next meal.
yeah.
And
And that
so,
and that also helps keep your sugar levels at bay and keep them
mhm,
from dipping and rising and things of that nature. And I wanted to share with our listeners some of your stats. And so
okay.
overall, he lost 26 pounds, and he's maintaining that very well. He had mentioned about the A1C. It had went from 13 to like 5.5 as a low. And his fasting sugar level, so something that he checks every morning, at one point was as high as like the 170s
Yes,
and averaging either 120s or less, which
yes,
is
yes.
awesome. Blood pressure was averaging at one point 150s over 90s, and that has gone down to averaging maybe 120s over the 70s. And then cholesterol, at one time it was as high as 106. So this is the LDL cholesterol, which I call it lousy cholesterol for short.
Say the bad.
106, and that went down to 90. And so, and ideally, want that below 100. So, all his levels across the board has improved overall. So that total body we had spoke about. And so, share with us how you feel like physically, like you mentioned already about the energy levels, but what about focus and sleep, and then emotionally, like how's all that changed for you?
Oh, well, truly everything across the board, as you shared, definitely has improved. For sleep, I try to make sure I get anywhere between 6 to 7 hours of sleep because, if you really get less than that, you find yourself, irritable, and that's not really good. But if you kind of balance yourself as far as getting the proper amount of sleep, it helps. As far as getting your exercise, for me, as far as focus, I definitely have the mental clarity, and sometimes, I say, yeah, I may have a little brain fog, every now and then, but
Mhm.
overall, I'm focused, I'm able to concentrate, mental alertness, and
Awesome.
definitely the energy, here I am almost 60 years old. I'm still, out there dealing with the kids and youth sports and,
Mhm.
playing ball with them, throwing, playing catch and all of that as a,
Mhm. Mhm.
coach out helping, helping the youth. And so
Awesome.
really I want to continue for another 20 years
Yeah,
doing this, and I think you
absolutely.
working with you, you put me on the right path, and the only thing I have to do is just be obedient
Mhm.
and stay with the program, continue to reach out to you, and like I say, we're not engaged in a contract or anything, but I always feel that you're there, you've been
Yes.
there,
Yes.
you've been
Absolutely.
there, and so anyone, I would just suggest, if you've ever dealt with Sandra, just don't think, once the contract ends, she'll still be there. So
Absolutely.
don't be afraid to reach out to her
Thank you.
and share with her, let her know how you're doing. As far as every time I get my labs, I reach
Yes.
out to Sandra and
I
share.
appreciate that.
I want you to look at them. Hey, if you see anything that's not right, tell me.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
and if they're high, I know why the numbers are high because I did cheat, and by cheating,
Yeah.
it's gonna show.
Yeah.
Those things are gonna show. But if you're really concerned about your overall health, you'll get back on track.
Yeah, exactly. And then and
We
you
we
have the
fall off the
tools.
wagon.
Yeah,
Yes, yes,
and you have the
yes.
tools to get back on track, which is
Mhm.
what saves us all. And
Exactly.
and the thing is, I'm glad you mentioned about being almost 60 because you got this diagnosis. You was what, early 50s, and so
Mid 50s,
yeah, so
5 years ago. Yeah, mid.
young,
Hmm.
young.
Hmm.
So you have added years back to your life, which is amazing. I mean, because
Hmm.
like I was in the same situation. I was kind of heading down the slippery slope of all kind of health problems. If I didn't get that blood pressure scare, really had caused me to make a change. It caused me to to, okay, wait a minute now, what am I doing? And I was in my 30s. So, so
Wow.
kind of that was a warning, a warning to say, hey, you got to turn this around. You can fix this. And
Hmm.
you're living proof that even with all the genetics and the family history and everything that you've seen, that we don't always have to have that same destiny, and, and,
Right. Right.
and we don't always have to go down that same path. There's many things that we can modify, and that you did. And you had mentioned about being very busy. And so I want to kind of touch on this because this is everybody. Many of our listeners, they're members of Greek organizations, as you are, fraternal organizations, like nonprofit community organizations. And just being a member and being active is a time commitment in itself. But you have held leadership positions in these organizations, and
Yes.
they required you to travel, and people want to feed you and take you out and do
Yes.
things.
Yes.
How did you balance all of that with this change?
Well, once I got the knowledge, because before I used to eat everything that would be put in front of me. We had banquets after banquets, and
Mhm.
they, some people would order vegetarian plates, and that would be loaded with pasta and different,
Yes.
non-protein things, and I was like, no, I can't eat that, but I would still eat my mashed potatoes and the
Mhm.
corn and the apple pie afterwards, or the ice cream and all of that stuff. And you know, today, if that menu is put in front of me, I may not eat the whole thing. I
Mhm.
may just taste it and,
Mhm.
and put it back, and just let it go. But uh, coming through these different organizations, going to these different conferences and conventions, and where they just had a standard meal for everyone,
Mhm.
and everyone just ate. And I always say those meals are not friendly if you're a diabetic. They're not diabetic
Right.
friendly. Okay,
They're not blood pressure friendly either, I can tell you.
they're not blood pressure friendly. But in my mind, I'm looking at, oh my
Yes.
goodness, this will elevate my blood sugar. and,
Mhm.
and knowing that, I kind of just sample it, put it back, but I would no longer clean my plate. Before,
Mhm.
you kind of grew up where, oh, you had to clean your plate. But now, no, you don't
Mhm.
need to clean your plate.
Yes.
Just sample
Right.
it, and just understand, if you're gonna eat this, you don't have to eat it all.
Yes.
And so being in those different organizations, and even today, we just concluded a convention or a conference this weekend, and I did not stick around to eat lunch. I went and found something else to do, but at the same time, there used to be a time when I want to stick around
Yeah.
for lunch.
Yes.
Okay, and make sure, hey, that was the meal that you was looking forward to.
Mhm.
and,
Mhm.
and so I found myself in probably about the last year, I'm not eager to eat lunch, or find out what's for lunch,
Yeah. Yeah.
because that's no longer important to me.
Yeah.
If I'm there, I'll partake, but I don't overindulge.
Right. And you know what all that's called? It is mindfulness. You are
Oh, okay.
mindful now because once
Okay.
upon a time you just like, okay, it's there. I'm gonna eat it. They make this for me. And but
Yes,
and
yes.
you can have it, but now you just have less of it. So it's not
Yeah,
like you're
yeah.
not allowed to have it, you can't have it, but now you're more mindful of how you eat and when you eat and what you choose to eat, and you're more selective. And
Mm,
and I don't know if you remember me sharing that. And then as you go through this process, even now, 2 years later, you become more and more selective in what you eat and what you indulge in, because we're going to indulge, and there's
mhm,
nothing wrong with that, but it's not any and everything. It's got to be worth it to you.
mhm. Yes, yes.
Okay, it's gonna be worth this little spike,
Mhm,
but you
mhm,
know how to
mhm.
control that.
Yes, yes, yes. And I think as a reinforce, I find myself telling, different people that I come in contact with, that's having struggles with, diabetes and blood pressure. I tell them about you. I tell
Thank
them
you.
they need to reach out. They need to, catch you on Facebook. I have a friend, that he finally reached out to you, and he was very pleased with the results, that he got. And now, we're like partners. I'll
Good,
reach out to him sometime and say, hey, what your numbers look like, and he'll
good.
share those numbers with me. And at the same time, if his numbers are a little high, he will admit, hey, I've been cheating. I say,
Mhm.
okay, now you need to get back on track.
Yeah,
You need to get back on
that's
track,
good.
because I want you around for a long time. We need to make sure that we stay in touch with each other. So
Yeah,
as a result of this journey, I've been able to share with others and encourage others to reach out to you and to at least listen to you and give you a shot,
yeah.
because personally, I'm fraternal, I'm forever grateful, to you for what you've done for me. I can't thank you enough. And a lot of
Amen.
times, we say, well, because you're family, I don't want to do this. Hey, but in this case, hey, I'm happy that you're family. I'm glad
Yes.
that you're here. I'm glad that we stay in touch with each other, because from a health perspective, you've been, A plus for me. I truly
Amen. I
appreciate you.
appreciate that. I appreciate that. Well, any words of wisdom that for our listeners that are in the same situation that you were once in, what words of wisdom would you share with them?
Well, I would say if you are struggling with anything, cholesterol, high blood pressure, diabetes, don't think you can do it by yourself. Okay, I don't want you to think that, oh, this is something that you can solve, because if you were a mechanic and someone that was a baker came to you, you're not going to show them the baker and expect them to understand things about being a mechanic. Okay, so when it comes to your overall health and how to eat and to manage your blood sugar, you need to have a professional. You really need to have a professional on your team. And I consider Sandra as being one of my team members. I have a banker, I have a lawyer, I have a dietitian. Okay, I consider all of these people, my coach, because they bring their skills and their professionalism, to you to help you be a better person. And for me, I would say if you find yourself in this position, find a professional. Find a professional, and I think everyone should have a dietitian as part of their team. And so
Amen.
just reach out. Don't be afraid to open up, and don't think, oh, because your belly is 3 inches, round, that's okay. It's not okay.
Hmm.
That's a sign that something is going on. And a dietitian, can definitely help you with that. 'Cause
Yes.
I find myself standing in the mirror looking sideways, because I'm a lot slimmer than I used to be. So if you find yourself in this
Yes.
situation, similar to what I've shared with you all today, there's help. Don't be afraid to reach out. And just as a plug,
Yes.
think about Sandra Gultry. Okay, you're a registered dietitian.
I appreciate that. I really do. I really do. And Lewis, I thank you so much for sharing your story, sharing your journey, and being transparent. Because trust me, you are changing mindsets, you are changing lives, and people, we always feel we're the only ones, and that nobody is feeling the same way that we're feeling. And so I think you've probably broken down some barriers for a lot of people. And to my listeners, thank you for tuning in with Up Close and Personal with our very special guest, Lewis Thurston. I really hope that you found this segment inspiring, motivating. It was real talk. And most of all, I hope that it gets you excited about what's possible for you as far as getting control of your health, where you can avoid either getting on meds or increasing your meds, breaking through those weight plateaus, building a healthy relationship with food, including not restricting carbs or feeling or fearing carbs, and getting control over those cravings, sugar cravings, food cravings, and just building life skills and habits that are realistic and things that will stay with you the long haul, even through those ebbs and flows of life and those ups and downs of life. Okay. And so I thank you for tuning in this week with It's All About Choices, Nutrition and Weight Loss. Remember that keeping a positive mindset and speaking only positive self talk goes a long way in cultivating and maintaining a healthy lifestyle and self care habits that last for a lifetime. So tune in next week, same time, same handle, and bye for now and enjoy the rest of your